Coaches. Every good sports team needs a coach. One of the understated but very important aspects in professional sports and in any good team. Today there was some hot news off the press. Both Pete Carroll and Nick Saban announced their retirement, I guess, or stepping down from their positions. Both legendary
He
coaches.
got fired.
He got fired? I heard he's like an advisor, isn't he?
I mean, they said you're done being the coach. How about that?
Well,
They
at
both
least he gets
were out of their position. How about that?
they were both out of their position. What do you mean
They're
by that?
both now out of their position.
Oh, got you.
Both Saban and Carroll.
Yeah, I suppose Saban goes out with a little bit better reputation than Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, though, 14 years, one Super Bowl, not a bad run as the Seahawks coach. Nick Saban, obviously a legendary run. Also in New England, there's some rumblings that another legendary coach, 7 Super Bowl championships, Bill Belichick, might be leaving. Coaches are an important part of any team. And that leads us to Chauncey Billups and the Portland Trailblazers. Colton, it looks like you have some thoughts on this.
I always have thoughts on everything. I just want to say, before I leap into the Blazers side of things, the NFL coaching landscape is pretty crazy right now. My team, the Los Angeles Chargers, the snake bitten
Oh yeah,
franchise,
speaking of
actually
another coach, I forgot the
they
most legendary
actually
coach.
fired their coach and their GM. They have openings at a time when there are tons of potential really good candidates, okay? And if the Chargers bungle this, I am going to lose my mind. If Belichick becomes available, if Jim Harbaugh, former Charger legend, becomes available,
Would you rather have them or would you rather have Mikey Mike
give me Jim Harbaugh.
out of all three
Everyone
of them?
wants, I want Jim Harbaugh top of the list, okay? Uh, Pete Carroll, he's an advisor. He's not going to coach, but if he was available, I'd want Pete. Mike Vrabel, the Titans coach, got fired. Mike
Mikey
Vrabel's
Mike?
a great, and Belichick's there. I don't necessarily want him to be GM, but
You
as a
got
coach,
Saban on the radar now too.
Saban.
I'm just
Last time
kidding.
he went to the NFL, it didn't work.
No.
This isn't all about the Chargers. My point is, firing a coach is sometimes the right move. Firing a coach before the end of the season is sometimes the
Look
right.
at one of my favorite examples of that is the Toronto Raptors a few years back. They fired Dwayne Casey, who was coach of the year, and hired Nick Nurse and won a championship the very next year. Obviously, Nick Nurse wasn't the only addition the Raptors made. They also brought in Kawhi Leonard. But that just goes to show that even a successful coach that everyone likes, sometimes a change of scenery is best for all parties involved. Well, I guess maybe specifically one party involved, but sometimes all parties involved.
So I think there's a pretty clear nexus point here between what's going on in Seattle and what's happening in Portland, and that is Ms. Jody Allen. Because I think that what happened in Seattle is kind of an atrocious decision, to be honest. Apparently, Pete Carroll wanted to come back. This is not retirement. He wanted to come
Wow.
back and play another season. He was told he may not come back and coach another season. They'll keep him in an advisory role, which is not defined at this point, which is basically just like this weird little token of like, we appreciate you, we want your culture to continue being a part of the team, but you're not going to be the coach anymore. And I don't know if if Jody and her team has a lead on someone that's supposed to be the next coach of the future for the team, but Pete Carroll is pretty special. And I mean, if you could get him in San Diego, I think that would be a great move for San Diego.
Los
And
Angeles.
whatever. And apparently he is open potentially to going to another team to continue being a head coach. That's the newest reporting is when they were asking him whether he would take another job, whether he would hear other job offers. He said it's too early to tell. I'm still reeling from this decision. So he did not at all rule out the idea of continuing to be a head coach in the NFL for another team. Obviously, he has a lot of loyalty to Seattle, but they're clearing house. They told all of his assistants that they could go out and interview for other jobs too. They're not planning to keep anybody. And it doesn't even really sound like they're planning to promote from within. They're planning to bring in a new guy with a whole new team, a whole new squad, and they're saying that everything that's happened in Seattle over the last 10 years is the past. And so, yeah, Pete Carroll's gone. This advisory role does not seem like enough for him to stay excited, in my opinion. Have you seen how much energy that 70-year-old man has? He wants to go be a head coach somewhere. I think after a week passes, he's going to go somewhere else. Jody, you're killing us.
Yeah, I don't know. We just talked about how a new, we just talked about the merits of firing a coach and hiring one, but I don't understand how anything that's happened in Seattle over the last few years is you can put on the coaching staff. Look at the what the roster's gone through from talent acquisition. I mean, their entire roster's been turned over in the last 5 years or so. I don't, new quarterback, new running back, whole new offensive line, defense is completely switched over. And every year they go out there and put together a great running game and a great defense, or at least, respectable in both of those areas. I don't know about that decision, but I also don't really like, I wouldn't like Pete Carroll as a coach for my team coming in just because of the age. I know he is spry and youthful, but he's 72 years old. I can't see him coaching another, 10 years. He's not going to make it. I could see him maybe doing like another 3 to 5 year run or something like that. But I don't really think that's what most franchises are looking for. That's not really what I would be looking for either. So kind of a shame that Seattle put him in that position. He's like got a few years left, still wants to coach, but he would pretty much have to go to like a contender type of situation for it to really make sense.
Well, here's one for you. The Philadelphia Eagles, there's been rumblings that they might fire their coach because of how much hey, you said it. Coach of the year Dwayne Casey was fired and he was hired, and guess who got hired? Well, Nick Sirianni in Philadelphia. It hasn't been going well the last 5 or so weeks. It's been kind of
I was gonna say
chaotic.
it's been going like historically great for 2 to 3 years, and then it goes bad for a month, and they're like, fire him.
That's just rumor mill. But I'm just saying, if Pete Carroll's on the market and you've got a ready to win team, a contender like the Philadelphia Eagles, that could be something to watch out for as far as Pete Carroll's landing spot. I'm not saying it's happening. I just saw, report. It's always a report that you could point to for any kind of rumor like that. But
so you got the firing coach's hand of it, but I want to quickly touch on the coaches leaving side of it too, because us Mid-Valley Oregon folk got a little taste of that a few weeks back. Oregon State Beavers head coach, the legendary Jonathan Smith. I'm sure if you're watching our podcast, you probably at least have an idea who he is and what the Oregon State Beavers football program looks like. That was really a blow to that program to watch him walk out the door and take his, 5-star quarterback, dual threat, with them to Michigan State. So there's two sides to, every coin. There's the management side of firing these coaches maybe when they don't deserve it, but there's also the leaving side and kind of leaving a place high and dry, maybe for good reason. Obviously, there's a lot built in with the Beavers right now that made sense for him to leave, but there's no loyalty on either side. And with coaches, they're always the first ones to go when management starts to demand a change. And I'll keep folding in more coaches, more situations here just because I feel like it. Terry Stotts, another example of that when in Portland, they knew a change needed to be made and they canned Terry Stotts first off, and that was really the first domino falling and the entire castle of Blazers crumbling to the ground. And then he went to Milwaukee and had a bad experience there too.
I'm gonna say I think it was a mistake to get rid of Stotts. I do. I thought it at the time when we got rid of Stotts, and my first question was, who do you have on deck to replace him? And it turned out we didn't really have anybody on deck to replace him. We eventually found Chauncey Billups, and it's been not good. So I don't know. I don't really think that was a move that made us better. It made us lose our top 75 all time point guard, and we haven't recovered. So I don't know. I don't know if he was going to lead us to a championship. Probably not, but we're not going to win a championship anyway. So, it would have been nice to at least have some quality basketball for a few more years.
I think you spoke to this point right here, Riley. What I was going to say, this is all what it comes down to: finding the right candidate for your roster, for your fan base, for your organization. The Blazers, from what I'm seeing personally, did not find the right candidate in Chauncey Billups. I'm going to name a candidate. People are going to be like, well, I don't know. This is who they should have hired: Becky Hammon. Okay. They should have done it. They should have pulled the trigger on Becky. I'm sorry. She went up under, Popovich's coaching tree. And what has Becky done in the WNBA? I know the WNBA. I know it doesn't directly translate to the NBA. How would it work? How would it work in general? Well, I think great coaching could transcend any kind of barriers like that. I think Becky would have been a great coach. Maybe at the time it was all kind of different because you think, oh, the point guard whisperer, Chauncey Billups, is going to help. He was a great defender. His defense is going to translate.
Also, he had the experience in Los Angeles too with the Clippers. He was coming in hot off that playoff run where he was basically given credit for the whole defensive system that was looking really good at the time.
1 year of being an assistant. 1 year. Coincidentally, the Chargers hired Brandon Staley after 1 year as a defensive coordinator. Both of the instances did not work out. Both of the defenses, awful. I'm just saying.
It's fascinating what makes up a good coach. Like thinking about going back to football, going back to what I was talking about with Jonathan Smith. He was like a college quarterback, like your boy Harbaugh. College quarterback, didn't get to the pros, didn't make that 20-year NFL career like Harbaugh did. But then he went to Washington, learned the system, became a quarterbacks coach, and then an offensive coordinator, had a bunch of years of experience, and then was able to take over that role. Also looking at Dan Lanning from Oregon, similar, kind of a very different situation. Wasn't a player. I think he played in high school or something like that, but was just like a graduate assistant for a series of teams until he got his break with Alabama and then Georgia and then got the head coaching job at Oregon. So he worked his way up in a completely different way. Finding that candidate, it can be tricky because they really come in all shapes and sizes with different skill sets. I think probably the most important thing about being a coach, this sounds a little weird, but I think maybe the most important thing is just being yourself, whatever your personality trait is, leaning as hard into that as possible. Look at Harbaugh. He is so off the wall, marches to the beat of his own drum, as people would say, kind of a wacky, kooky dude, but he just goes full board into that. No shame about it. That's how he shows up to his recruiting. That's how he shows up to game practice. That's how he shows up to the games. He's always going to be that guy. And I feel like any great coach, it's pretty much, obviously a bunch of other skills come into it, and maybe it's more correlation than causation, but I do feel like a big part of it and a big thing you can kind of build a team around is that personality. And that personality, it doesn't have to be one specific personality. It can be a ton of different kinds of personalities, a whole spectrum, but it has to be authentic.
I think another good example of someone who has just remained their authentic selves, and it's worked for years now. Someone else who is in the news as a coach today, local guy, we'll take credit for him, Coach Spo, Eric Spoelstra. He signed a deal today, $120 million for 8 years, record breaking. Get your money, Eric. But also,
he deserves it.
He
deserves
does.
it.
And also, you know, to show just how much of a real one Pat Riley is, they waited until his divorce was finalized to sign the contract. So she doesn't get any of it. That's what I'm talking about. They could have negotiated this deal 2 years ago, is what the rumors are. They started talking about this 2 years ago, waited until now to sign it because now she doesn't get any of it. That's some love right there. That's
Wow.
some real, you know, building generational wealth together for decades kind of camaraderie between those guys. But he's always been just a very analytical guy. You know, it's very clear. He doesn't show a lot of emotion most of the time. He's pretty like fact-based, data-based, that kind of thing. And I mean, it shows. He started as a video guy, you know, mostly. He played a little bit. He played in Germany for a couple years, point guard, but you know, his success has come as an analytical guy, from the video room all the way up through head coach, and now he's been, you know, what, a decade or more or whatever, and he's not going anywhere. You get another decade of Coach Spoelstra in Miami, and they should be grateful to have him, because that's the kind of guy that keeps a culture running for a long, long time. And Miami is a threat every single year, pretty much, because of that culture.
So Colton, do you see any issue from that standpoint as to why Billups isn't working out or shouldn't be the coach of the future? Is it a culture thing? You're worried about the culture he's building, or is it more an X's and O's sort of thing?
Well, okay. I can't speak to what's going on in the locker room. Okay. I can't speak to what he's saying to the players because I'm not there. What I do see, there's major scheme issues. There is. You know, the thing that he was doing earlier in the season that was, or, you know, in the last couple seasons that's frustrating is too much zone. I haven't seen that as big of a problem lately. But, you know, routinely losing your guy on the fast break, whether that's just marking up with your guy or what have you, uh, that is one thing that bugs me more than anything, and I think that happens with this team way too much. Part of this, uh, funnily enough, is coincided with Aiton being out and a lack of rebounding and being able to end possessions, and just having that mobile big man. I will say that part of it is because they've been undersized. Duapre's doing his best, but I really don't like what I'm seeing out there. Part of this could just be Chauncey's overall mantra, but what I hate is when I never see Chauncey chewing out these young players, like getting on them. And yes, he probably does it in his own way, but they could have 3 turnovers in a row and he's just sitting there like every time the camera pans to him.
I think it's probably because he knows. So in addition to, you need a great personality and you need, you know, the analytical skills and you need the scheme skills and everything, you also need personnel. That's probably the number one key to being a successful coach, is you need personnel that's talented and that also buy into your system and can play the way that you want to play. Look at there's coaches that can do it, you know, with all different types, like Sean McVay this year. Go Rams. He maybe did his most masterful coaching job this year, getting them into the playoffs with the talent they have. Obviously, they still have Aaron Donald and Stafford, but look at Jim Harbaugh. Like, he came to Michigan and they weren't amazing. They weren't bad, but they weren't world beaters. They lost to Ohio State, I think, the first 4 or 5 years he was the head coach of Michigan. And it took him like 5, 6 years, maybe no longer than that, like 7 years or something like that, to get his personnel in. And then not only get his recruits and his personnel in, but wait until they're all seniors and have had like 5, 6 years of experience with the COVID year, you know, in there. And now they know exactly the way he wants to play. They have the identity built. They're his guys. I don't think Billups has had a chance to do any of that. He came into a system that was Stott's system. All the personnel was, you know, scoring first, not defensive oriented, not athletic, the kind of the way that he supposedly likes to build his defenses. And then he's had 2 years of that, and then this year of a complete blow it up rebuild with, you know, 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds trying to learn his system. So I think it's a little premature. I think it's a little too soon to get rid of Chauncey. I don't think he's done anything egregious enough to deserve to get the boot. I think he's done a pretty good job of developing players for the most part. I like what I've seen for the most part out of Shade in the last couple years. I like what I've seen from Scoots coming along nicely. Simons, it seems like he did a pretty good job developing Simons. I think next year is really when it's going to be the test for him. If he can't start to get those defensive schemes implemented and really it start to look good consistently, if they have his personnel out there, they have his scheme out there, he's going on, it's going to be his 4th year next year. He really needs to figure it out by then. This year, I feel like it's a little unfair to get rid of him without giving him that chance.
Yeah, I feel like it's a tough question because I am very much in favor of when you pick a head coach, you have to give them time to see how it's going to develop. I think really, like you said with Harbaugh, it might take like the better part of a decade to really find out whether a coach's overall scheme and overall trajectory is going to work. Sometimes I think you might need even a little bit more time than that. Yeah, I'm not totally convinced that Stotts and Dame couldn't have done something with a few more years. I just don't know. I know that's not necessarily the like party line right now, but that's kind of what I would have liked to see, if I'm being honest. That's the kind of basketball that I would have liked to see. But I think that there's the trick here is that you do have to pick the right person. And I do worry a little bit that maybe Billups was never the right person. And that if we just give him another 4, 5, 6 years, it's just going to be more of the same. And then we're going to have to start over again with somebody
Is
else.
there a specific reason that you don't think he's the guy? Is it, like I asked Colton, is it a culture thing? Is it more X's and O's? Do you not like something he brings to the team from a culture standpoint?
I don't think there's anything like from a culture standpoint specifically that I can point to. He is very low energy. And I don't know how well that matches up with Scoot and with Shaden. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know that he has the experience, or if you have a lack of experience, you've at least got to bring energy or something new, something interesting. And we haven't really seen it. It does kind of feel like a lot of times he's trying to see what the players want to do and kind of letting them run the show. I don't know. We're not in the locker room. We can only speculate. But I just don't know that he really has a strong enough voice from what we've seen to be like a 10-year head coach that's going to lead us to a great build.
Who do you think like the best? I'm trying to think of a comp for him of like kind of a more stoic, low energy coach who's like a great one. I'm trying to think. Most of the guys that I can think of, they're
Maybe you like Frank Vogel.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I'd like classify him as a great. He's solid, but
I mean, he won a title.
yeah, with LeBron and AD, but yeah, that says something in and of itself that he's able to get those guys manage those personalities and get them to a Mickey Mouse ring. But like,
I just want to say like one example too of X's and O's that I'm not really a fan of. Well, one thing, minutes distribution. Like say last game, the Blazers got blown out by 30 points. Scoot played, I think, 24 minutes in a development season where there was plenty of opportunities to play him and get more reps on the floor. Justin Minaya is out here getting minutes. I don't like the
do you think that's 100% on Billups? You think he's 100% making those personnel calls?
Yes, I think that going into the fourth quarter, he could have decided to play somebody like Scoot or Shaden over Justin Minaya. Those guys are not good enough to be getting reps in a game. They're 21 and or 20 and 19 years old. I mean, it's not like they shouldn't play, they're the
I would
future. And I don't really like the scheme on offense either. I think it's a lot of ball sticking as well, ball watching. Ant Grant sometimes ball. I don't like when Ant and Scoot are in. Ant is usually the primary ball handler, and Scoot's been the off-ball guy, which I know Ant exceeds with the ball in his hands, succeeds with the ball in his hands, whatever you want to say. But I don't like Scoot sitting in the corner and being relegated to a secondary attack man when he's obviously your primary distributor. He's a pass first point guard. Let him work with the keys. I'm not saying he has to be on ball every possession, but that's just an example of the X's and O's that I don't like. It's not playing to your player's strengths. And I think that the players on this team have strengths and they're not being properly utilized.
I mean, I think we talked about this early in the season, and it's not quite as relevant now because Aiton's basically seems to be out or getting a lot of rest. He hasn't played a lot lately, and I know he has a more of a legitimate injury now. But even before the legitimate injury, he was kind of in and out a little bit because I don't think they
What
want
is
to play
his
him too many
injury?
minutes. What's that?
What is his injury?
Ankle? An ankle? Something like that. Anyway, but earlier in the year when he was playing, we were running like no pick and rolls. And to have Aiton and Grant on your team and not be running any pick and rolls is just egregious. I mean, they should be doing that. We talked about this. I've said this ad nauseum, but like Scoot and Aiton, the fact that they're not running like 25 pick and rolls a game is just insanity when they're both in there. They were doing like none, maybe two, I think I saw in one game, but it's almost all of this like Aiton is just not very good at establishing himself in the post. He can't do that apparently. And when he does, he just doesn't really get himself in position to call for the ball. He doesn't call for the ball aggressively enough. So I wanted to see a lot more pick and roll. I wanted to see a lot more movement of the ball. And instead it was a lot of like, I don't know, like not to be mean, but kind of like middle school basketball, like the guards all around the 3-point line, the wings down lower, and they're just like trying to throw it into the post. It's like, what are you doing? Move around, move the ball,
We're
And they
last in
didn't.
the league in assist percentage, I believe. Second to last in the total assists, and a lot of times a lot of them are coming from either scoot, which that comes with turnovers, or you know what I mean? Like, I just don't like what I'm seeing out of the offense or the defense really anymore.
Yeah, I do. I feel like we knew that this was going to happen coming in, though, and to act surprised about it is a little ridiculous. Like, just
Not surprised.
look at the roster. I mean, the talent just isn't there. No matter how you look at it, no matter who was coaching this team, it wasn't ever going to look pretty. This is going to be a bad year, regardless. I just don't know if those things you guys are saying are such easy, quick fixes. I think that it's a lot more about the personnel, the age of these guys, the chemistry. They haven't played, they're playing together, some of them for the first time ever this season. They're just starting to figure out they're 20 years old. They're playing against veteran teams with starting lineups with James Harden, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, these guys that are, 30 years old and have been dominating the league forever. I think that those defenses could probably tune in to some of those things you guys were talking about and take them away. It's not like they could just force it every time because then they're going to create turnovers and more issues. So I think some of that stuff, it comes with time. It comes with familiarity, chemistry, age, experience, and more talented personnel, better shooting so that you can allow more space for that pick and roll. More wing defenders, more experience defending the ball. I just don't think you can put it all on Billups. I'm not saying he's blameless, but I don't really know if there's anything to be blamed for this year at this point. Like, I don't really think any heads need to roll with the expectations coming into this season and what they've produced. I think it's pretty 1-to-1. Like, this is pretty much what I expected. And to fire a coach over it, I just don't really think that's entirely fair to him. Like I said, if these problems persist into next year and we don't see any sort of development in any of these things that you guys are mentioning, then yeah, it's time to take a serious long look at him. But right now, I think it's just too early.
It's hard to lose 4 out of 5 NBA games by 30 plus points, no matter who's on the roster. It's hard to do that. Detroit Pistons, while they were losing a lot of games in a row, were not losing 4 out of 5 games by 30 points per game or more. And that could just be a bad stretch, but to me, that speaks to something deeper. Also, you heard it here first. Kirby, once Billups locked up on a 10-year deal, extended him.
Yup.
That's what I heard.
Mr. Big Shot. So you want Becky?
It's probably too late.
You want him to give him that Becky?
It's probably too late for Becky. Becky's probably going to say, nope, you
What
chose
is where is she at?
the Las Vegas Aces. They won titles.
You think it's too late?
You interview somewhere and they say no, and they hire a coach that hasn't ever coached
She's
before.
she's playing for the Aces, or she's coaching the Aces, bro. I think about any NBA offer, she would be picking up that phone call real quick.
Maybe. I mean, if you go to an interview and they just say no to your face, and then you go, you're like,
For
no,
an NBA head coaching position. That I'm just saying the prestige of the position changes a little bit. Like I feel like if the president, they offer you the Secretary of State and they say no, and then they offer it to you a year later, it's like, okay, I'll still take the Secretary of State position because I'm working at Walmart right now.
Whoa, you heard it here first. Walmart.
What about you, Riley? Who do you, if they did move on from Chauncey Billups, are there any prospective names that come to mind?
I don't. Let's bring back Stotts.
All right, Stotts and Becky, co-coach. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We will see you next time. Let us know in the comments down below if Billups should be fired and who the next Blazers coach should be. Thanks for watching. We will see you next time.
Bye.